Hi everybody, welcome back. We're doing another Instagram Live. This time we're going to be talking with CCAM and Nat Power about their current show through a Hinge Made Oblique. Hi everyone. I'm going to pan you around the gallery quickly. All these paintings are made by CCAM and Nat Power, some collaboration. We're going to be talking about that. And I'm going to send an invitation every single time. I forget how to do this, but we're going to try. I'm going to get close to some of these for you in the meantime. All right. Let's see. All right, now. Hey guys.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for taking the time today.
Yeah.
I know it's tough in the middle of like a work week to meet and talk about the show, but I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Huh?
oh God. It looks really good on camera. Behind your head.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the work looks great on camera. So I'll just introduce the exhibition real quick, and then I'll let you guys introduce yourselves. But this show is called Through a Hinge Made Oblique. It just went on view Saturday, and it'll be up through August 7th. And Nat and C, want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah.
You go first.
Yeah, I'm Nat Power. I met Z in school.
No, you're a tattoo artist.
Yes, I'm a tattoo artist. I'm Nat Power. I work as a tattooer in my daily life, which influences the work now at this point, of course.
Yeah.
And this is my collaborator.
My name is Z Cam. I am a painter based here in Austin. I work full time as an artist. And yeah, we met in school and we've been collaborating since 2015.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
How did that collaboration start?
So right after I graduated, we applied to CoLab summer school program. CoLab is a nonprofit gallery here in Austin, and they have like a summer program where they teach emerging artists some skills that you need to know in order to survive in the art world. Mm-hmm. And so Nat still had one more year at that time at UT. And I just graduated, and then we just did a show together with a few other people.
Yeah, and we've been collaborating since then. Our first big show was that one in town now, and it was like 2 or 3 doors down from Ivester, so that was cool.
Yeah.
Always end up at Canopy.
Was that the first time you had worked together on single pieces?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But that was like super rudimentary. Like it was like not like we haven't thought much out yet. So.
That was our first time like making work together.
Wow. And that was 2015.
2015. And then I took a year kind of to figure stuff out, get a job and all that. And then 2017, I got invited to do Art Bash by the Art Alliance, the Austin Art Alliance. And then I invited Nat to, have to exhibit stuff in a room that they assigned to us. So yeah, that was like our more serious project, like thinking about stuff cohesively as a show and as a collective together.
Yeah. So how would you say your work, one of the questions that we got on the post that I did yesterday was asking about like, what does your collaboration process look like and how has it changed?
Yeah, so originally when we were working together, we did more sculpture work together, which was less planning, but nowadays we really sit down, we sketch work together back and forth. Usually at this point, kind of like a lot of the imagery we use, we kind of share, like we pass back and forth and then interpret it through our own lenses, which is super fun to be able to like trade imagery with someone like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's collaborative from the inception to the completion of the piece. We start sketching and planning together, and then when we're painting the work, we have most of it planned out, but a lot of it is like Z will do a lot of the color mixing. And then we'll like, agree on colors, and that one has some wild ass colors.
Crazy.
And then we'll simultaneously paint together or trade off.
Yeah.
Whatever task works best for the piece.
Right, and we're like good at different things. Like for example, I'm not as good at drawing as Nat is, because Nat like actually sketch like as like a tattoo artist. She has to like
I
draw
have to
flashes
make
all the
like
time.
super defined lines
Yeah.
in my daily work, so I'm good at like doing a final draft with lines. But Z is more like, I think we described it before, like
I'm more
the stuff and the
experimental. Like I
details.
don't have an established style, so I can just like I'm free to just like do whatever and like throw weird things, you know, into just make weird things adding to it and stuff protruding and you know all those things. And yeah, and I'm better at like painting really fine lines with a really steady hand. That is too, but like she paints a lot faster, and so she's good with like helping us finish fast, and like I'm good at like doing the final touches sometimes. Yeah,
I think it's amazing that you found each other, because while you might feel like one is better at certain things than the other, you're both so talented and like right in line with each other. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad.
Yeah, and it's like amazing to have someone who will allow you to draw over what they just drew.
Yeah,
like I think that's really hard.
We'll
like,
sit there and erase stuff and change stuff and be like, "Do you like this?"
Yeah,
and no hard feelings.
No.
Yeah,
no.
that's key.
Yeah, I stayed friends with Z after school because Z gave the most brutal critiques that were honest and helpful in
Nice.
school. So
That's hard to do.
yeah.
So in this show, you've made the 3 collaborative works, which are the ones that I just zoomed in on, which I'll do again. These 2, and then this one with the black background here.
Yes.
How about the other works? How do you? You've both made individual pieces too. How does that differ from your collaborative work, and what are some of the themes in your collaborative work compared to individual?
So I'll go back to talking more about the overall theme for this exhibition. We were inspired by Italian Renaissance art with a focus on the grotesque, and also like just interest in like patterns, especially for me, like Chinese aesthetic, decorative patterns kind of thing. And we've been researching a lot of images about these 2 things and reading up on it, and it's not like a new thing that, you know, we just invented. Like people have been making those connections for a while, especially in the fashion industry. You know, we love like Hermes scarves and stuff like that, you know, like just a celebration of like decorative feminine patterns.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily feminine, but that's just what's been used, you know, in fashion.
Right.
So
and a lot of that reference material relating to the grotesque comes from like Renaissance gardens, where there's a beautiful arrangement of like exterior architecture and floral and plant life, and then there's like a grotesque statuary in there, just kind of disturbing it, but also at home.
Yeah.
So we're trying to create those worlds.
And the grotesque, I saw you did a story sort of defining what the grotesque means a little bit, as far as what that directly refers to. I don't think everybody's familiar with that word. What does that mean?
The grotesque is usually set in opposition to the classical. The classical in art history is like, you know, Roman statues, Greek statues, like, you know, just beautiful, like golden ratio proportions, everything. And the grotesque is the opposite of that. And it's not that it's not celebrated, it's just, it's more obscure in art history. I think most people aren't as familiar with it when they think of like, oh, art in a museum. But like they exist together and kind of define each other. Because without the grotesque, then you can't say something is beautiful. And without the, you know, perfect proportions of marble statues, you can't say something is grotesque. Like that's just how it is in art history. And so the grotesque has, and they also, the most famous example would be like bestiary. Like back then when medieval people were making manuscripts, they made a bestiary where they depicted the grotesque as kind of these malformed monsters and stuff like that, like with multiple eyes, multiple legs, or just one-legged or something.
Yeah.
And Blanton actually did a show of that like a few years ago, I think. And I think they were saying that it's a metaphor for basically people with disability, or, you know, like the people that are marginalized in society. It's a metaphor for, medieval society. And so I think there have always been queer artists who have made that connection of like, you know, we're a marginalized group and people think that there's something wrong with us or something missing, you know, in terms of like if human beings are created by God or something, then like, so the grotesque kind of represent that. And sometimes people want to take that back, like so-called like reclaiming that idea of like, well, monsters, I mean, think of Lady Gaga. What was that album's name? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, like she has an album with the name monster, with the word monster in it. And so like, yeah, it's like queer people have been making these connections forever, that like reclaiming the image of the monster and saying that, well, there's actually something sublimely beautiful about it.
Yeah.
Nice. And as far as your individual works compared to each other, would you say that individually you guys lean one way or the other a little bit more than the other artist, for instance? Like, would you say that there's a strong line between your work, C, and Nat, your work?
I feel like we're working with like similar imagery and like composition, but I think each of our like cultural backgrounds comes in. Like a lot of mine use like suburban elements and like mall architecture that I'm trying to stage as if it were like this Renaissance garden. And I use like the statues are all like wrestling holds.
Yeah, like lowbrow art.
Yeah. So just trying to like reposition these things as something that's more of like an elegant space, but it's really still just a mall and like a wrestling pose.
A mall. There's a lot of tile.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And the archways, like, you know, I just love a like abandoned mall look. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then Z's work, I think you had notes on like color and light and more of like your Hong Kong experience.
Yeah, like I grew up in a really colorful city, and it comes from both like I was born in Hong Kong and I grew up there for like over a decade before I moved here. And like Hong Kong has like, you know, people think of the beautiful neon lights at night and the nightlife and all that. So it's partially inspired by that, but it's also the, you know, the really colorful culture that comes with being ethnically Chinese. And like, so those two things like kind of coexist together. It's like both this like really modern, you know, city and also like this archaic superstition religious culture. So both of those things are super colorful, and I just, you know, I just try to experiment with like weird colors, like colors. We use a lot of neon colors, fluorescent colors, because they show up differently in person than digitally.
Yeah, and a lot of both of ours is influenced by, we were talking about recently, like the internet, like growing up and having access to that and that like digital representation of color. So a lot of like the blues that we use and such are like, you know, dead computer screen blue, like that void, but then it can't be recreated on a computer screen, which is a fun back and forth attempt.
Yeah.
I love that. So really inspired by like the internet too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, because growing up, like I think we both, like I'm a homebody, even though I lived in a big city, so-called big city, like I still, you know, just hung out by myself, like on the computer.
Oh yeah, me too.
And it's like, you know, people build these digital spaces, and like people with similar identity just kind of like gather together. And like, I think, you know, as creative people, we were both really into stuff like fan art, you know, like people on like, you know, calling back to like deviant art, people love drawing like animals or like adoptables. I don't know if you're familiar with that concept. It's basically like someone would draw like say like someone drew a wolf,
like,
and then and then they'll like let their fans claim it, and then you can like put an HTML code on your page, like you have claimed this wolf, this is your pet, your digital pet, you know, like yeah, so it's like, you know, people projecting their identities on animals and, you know, anthropomorphic creatures and stuff like that. Yeah.
That feels like, I mean, both of your work deals with these creatures, different creatures between the two of you, but the collaborative work is really like a clear mixture of different animals coming together, intertwined.
Yeah.
And one of my just kind of like low-key favorite parts of the show is how you've color-coded the edges.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that too?
Yeah, so the edges of my personal work are just black. And then our collaborative work, we painted with like more of a neon border. It's just a solid color, like intended to kind of reflect really nicely on the wall. And then Z, you can talk about your patterns, but Z's individual work is all completely patterned on the two edges.
Yeah.
As seen here. Yeah.
This one has two different patterns. Or two different color patterns. Yeah. So that
I
one
love
is
that.
particularly frustrating to look at because you can't see both sides at the same time. The other ones all have matching patterns on both sides.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So like I think we picked this thickness of the wood to make these panels because we really wanted the paintings to stand out as objects. And part of doing the pattern is doing that. I mean, there's another reason why I would like do intricate patterns on them is because like, you know, it's about the decorative and there's like some kind of like meanness to it where I'm trying to say, yeah, like these patterns look nice, but they're also just on the side. Like it's unimportant. It's both saying that like the decoration, the aesthetic is important, but also it is not important. Like it's like a self-check, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so interesting.
But I do want to expand on the idea of like the paintings as the objects. I think other than like making them super thick and making them have like this presence, I think we've also accomplished making them as objects by using the colors. I wrote a little bit about this. It's just me nerding out, but I think it's the coolest thing about the colors is that like we use fluorescent colors. They can't be accurately photographed digitally. But at the same time, they really do resemble what you see on the screen, like the cyan and the magenta and the blue screen of death. And basically, we have taken something that is not real, which is like the internet colors, out into reality. But at the same time, they cannot return to the internet.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's really cool. So they're not just mere signals. They're not mere signifiers. These paintings are not just mere signifiers for like internet, like art, like digital, like
But it references
digital age. Yeah, we're not just doing that. We have created real objects.
The other
actually from the internet. Yeah,
it's like the way you like experience a sculptural work. You got to see it in person, move around it. With these, you have to see them and move around them and see the edges and everything.
And I think that just the architectural elements that you have in the pieces help your work stand out from the wall too. I mean, they all feel like so deep.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the time today. I always like to keep these short. Instagram, is a little bit more digestible, but I hope that everybody watching enjoyed this. This exhibition is on view through August 7th. It's called Through a Hinge Made Oblique. See you in that. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was fun. Yeah.
Bye.
Everybody
Have a good day.
Yay.
Bye.